So now for some of the cool new AI features. I'm back here with my hotel reviews dataset that I had before as well. And so I'm in the Power Query Online editor on my data flow. Now, in that dataset I have some reviews that people left about hotels, and they've also uploaded some images. Now, one of the things I can do to really enrich this data that I already have is to use the AI insights. And this shows me a couple of functions that are available to me. And it allows me to just out of the box use these, for instance, these cognitive services. So I could detect language, I could extract key phrases. For this example, I want to score the sentiment of the reviews. I'm just going to select that one. And then I can put in the field that I want to apply this function to. So I want to do this on the review text. For now, I just have to put in the language that it's going to be in, but when we go into production, that will be automatically detected. So then I'm going to invoke the function. And while this is running just in the Power BI service. And as any other transformation I'm doing in Power Query, it will add a column with the result of that function. And so you see it just take a second. And now I have the actual sentiment score of this review. Now, maybe there's some data scientist in my organization who has created this amazing model for tagging images that's specific to my use case. Now with this new integration with Azure ML, I can actually leverage that right out of Power BI. So my data scientist has created this model in Python using the Azure ML SDK, and they have created a web service for that model. Now, all the data scientist has to do is go into the Azure portal, give me access to the model. And as soon as they've done that, it will show up in my functions here. So as before, I'm going to AI Insights right over here. And then I have my Azure Machine Learning models. And as you can see, that's where the hotel image classifier is showing up. So I select that, and I can just as easily select the column, the image column that I want to apply it to, and I just invoke it. Now, similar to the previous steps, is all recorded here. It just applies that model on the data that I've selected. If I expand the column here, it's just going to take a second. And doing that, it will just add the image tags to my data set. Let's look at that. So you see, like pool, there's some pictures about the hotel rooms, about the views. And now I can save again that data set and connect to it from desktop or just create a report on it. Now let's see what that would look like. So I already have a report that is about these hotel reviews. And so far, I was just able to load the images with the reviews that are related. And I can see how many reviews has been left on which hotel and which island. But by adding that sentiment and adding those tags, I can make this analysis much more interesting. So one thing I can do is, for instance, look at the sentiment score by hotel. I'm just going to drag that on here and make it to a bar chart. And there you can see, now I can filter actually my reviews by the hotels that have the highest or lowest sentiment. Now, another thing I can also do is to bring in the image tags. I want to make a new graph with the image tags, add the sentiment score, and then again, make it into a bar graph. So right now I can just see which images are related to high and low sentiment. So again, I can just filter on that. I can say, okay, people that have images with the beaches generally have a high sentiment, and I can see which hotels those are for. And then also the lower sentiment is, in this case, about ACs that are, not really looking like something you want to find on your holiday. So these AI functions allow analysts to enrich their data and to get more depth in their analysis. but we're also doing a lot for end users, mostly just to make their lives easier and to enable them to find insights faster. Now, one example here I have is a tourism analysis on Hawaii. And so you can see how many people are visiting the different islands, why they are visiting, and how much they're spending. But there's also a lot of information behind this that is not shown maybe directly in this report. Now, with Quick Insights, I can actually get that out. We originally introduced Quick Insights to get insights on your complete data set, but now we're actually focusing it on the points that are relevant to you, so the context that you're looking at. Let's look at the visits by date and region. If I select that and I right click, I can now use the analyze, and Power BI is already seeing what type of data and what type of graph this is to know what would be my next deep dive. So I can say I want to explain the decrease, and it will show me what has happened and what is driving the decrease behind this chart. So for instance, here I can see that conventions visits, people visiting for conventions is actually going up, but the biggest decrease is in people visiting for vacation, which might make sense if you compare August with September. Another thing that I can do here is use Q&A. So Q&A was already available in Service, but we've now also introduced it in Power BI Desktop, so you can use it right from the report. I have my Q&A button here. I can just incorporate it in my design as I want, and if I open it, it will give me my Q&A interface. So I have a couple of questions that have been suggested for me. And I can, look at these different graphs. But I can also just propose my own question. So maybe instead of my spending per day, I want to look at the spending per trip. So for instance, I can look at spending per trip by island. And this will give me uh, this visual that I can use. But what I now can also do is to ask a follow-up question. So really to start building the narrative for myself. I'll ask a follow-up question, and not only can I type it, but it will now also give me the option to use the same quick insights engine right here in Q&A. So I can select what affects this distribution, and it will actually give me some insights on why this is happening in my dataset. You can also see that adds to the history. So slowly I'm building my own analysis here. Now, just to add one more thing that we've just released about a month ago, and that's the Python integration. So just as with R, you can now use Python to create visuals, but also to prep your data. So here I'm going to show you an example of how to build a visual for Python. I'm just going to select the Python visual that's right next to the R one over here. I'm going to just drag it over here, make it a little bit bigger. And in the same data set, I have some data about the weather on different islands. And so I want to make a swarm plot of the temperatures per season on the different islands, but that's not an out-of-the-box visual in Power BI. So I can use Python to do that. I'll just drag all the items, all the fields that I want to use in this visual. I'm going to drag those to the values. So index, the season, and average temperature. And I want to make sure they're not summarized. And then all I have to do is get my script in here. So of course, prepared it, but as you can see, it's just a couple of lines that define this swarm plot for me. I'm running it now, and it will just show me the distribution of temperatures over the different seasons. I can use this to just filter my report. It will all adjust to that. And that's just one other cool thing that you can do with Python in Power BI.